My search for a great DAC at a reasonable price has taken me a lot of places. And one of the places it's taken me is to the RME line, the RME ADI Pro here. Also looking for having a nice solid state amp, so a DAC amp combo, which would sit next to my tube amp and sort of give me that full package. So I've reviewed the Chord TT2 in a previous video, and that was available to me while I was testing this. So they got sort of benchmarked against each other, even though this is a vastly less expensive DAC amp combo. So there's a couple of versions of this. This is the, I guess, sort of the top of the line of this part of RME's line. They have a lot of other gear that's, you know, way more engineering, way for the audio professional, but this is the Pro Edition, and with the Pro Edition you get a handful of additional inputs and outputs, including passing digital out, which is pretty cool, because you can use a lot of the features of this thing and then have another DAC down the chain if you want. So that's kind of fun. And you also get the option to run a balanced headphone amp, where basically you get 2 1/4" into like a XLR, 4-pin XLR connector, and then you can connect up your headphones to it. This is another sort of chip-based DAC, and what I think has got a lot of people's attention about this DAC is not necessarily the core DAC technology, but it's the implementation of it and all the features that surround it. And it is a very feature-rich DAC, including a very impressive set of filters and EQs, and tons of programmable EQs you can name, and you can route the sound. I want, when it's coming in from an analog source and it's going out to the headphones, I want it to use this EQ or one of 10 EQs, and if I'm routing it this way, I want a different one. So it's if you're into tweaking, if you love to just like nerd out and just push things up and down by a dB, and just kind of get in there and noodle and maybe set up different profiles for each of your headphones, which is something I was sort of curious about, but it turns out I don't really love doing that. Then this is a very powerful piece of technology. But just to back up, how is this as a DAC? How is this as an amp? I think overall you could sort of classify this as just an incredibly transparent sounding piece of equipment. And what it does is it really pulls all the details out of the sound, almost in a sort of punishing way. Like, there's so much detail when you listen to this that there's just no room in the sound anymore. It's just like you're hearing all the details at once. And I found that a little bit unenjoyable, a little bit fatiguing over time. It almost feels like this DAC favors the micro detail over like the primary tone. So if there's like a guitar strum, instead of you like hearing the note of the guitar with maybe a little bit of, the player's fingernail on the string or whatnot as like an afterthought or something you sort of hear a little bit of, it's like that's the stuff that really comes forward. And then like the primary tonality seems to almost get lost a little bit, in my experience with it. It is fun to listen to sort of modern music, pop music, producer-driven music, because the bass hits so hard. It's just this powerful, clean bass. Everything's clean. It's a super tidy sound. And so for more sort of heavily produced music, that's really fun, because you feel like you're getting what the artist intended. You're getting this very lively and intense sound. And since it is so clean and so tidy, it does pair well with warmer things. So like warmer headphones, like I was listening to some ZMF Elios, which sounded, I think that's how you say it, which sounded very nicely balanced and very alive and punchy. And when paired as just a DAC with like a warmer tube amp, it sort of makes sense. Again, still, it's not my favorite. It when you hear like a Chord DAC next to it, this ends up feeling very flat. And so all that detail doesn't get you so much three-dimensionality. It just sort of gets you all that detail and all that detail coming at you like a wall. And it could be that I didn't spend enough time digging through the settings and tweaking and adjusting and getting it balanced out to my system, because that is what this unit is really all about. And so I'll admit that maybe I'm a lazy audiophile, but I want a DAC that, you plug in, it's got 1 or 2 settings, and otherwise it just sounds great, because that's really what I'm after, is sitting back and listening and hearing something that sounds very musical, not just geeking out on the details. I listened to just the amp portion of this with, another DAC up front of it, and sort of A/B'd that against, another solid state amp I had, as well as a tube amp, a few things. And just the amp portion of it is not that great. It's powerful enough. I was able to run, DT880 600 ohms. I was able to run argons, things that, do typically challenge amps. So it's not lacking in power, but it's a little thin, I think, the sound. The bass still kicks really hard, but it just doesn't have a lot of body. That's sort of like the summary for this thing. It's like all the elements are sort of pretty good when you take them apart. Oh, detail, it's got detail. Oh, like bass kick, yeah, it's got bass kick. Oh, features, it got features. But when you just sort of sit down with it at the end of the day, it didn't quite connect for me. And it could be that I like a lot of jazz. I like a lot of classical. I like a lot of things that sort of have a bit of, nuance and sway, and I don't listen to as much sort of modern, I do love some electronic music. I do love some, pretty sort of out there stuff, but even with that stuff, it just felt too forced. I think all that detail, it just feels effortful. Like it feels like work, that it's doing a lot of work, and then I as a listener am having to do a lot of work. And I think at some points it even gets a bit sort of shouty, since it is kind of dry and precise. So yeah, that's the summary on this guy. I think it's very technically capable. If you just want every little piece of detail out of music, then this is definitely something to consider. It's a lovely little small package to sit on your desk to be a very powerful, balanced amp, as well as a very feature-rich DAC. So it's got a lot of things going its way, but for what I'm searching for, which is a little bit, which is that balance of sort of naturalness and musicality with the fun of getting to have a little discovery of detail. Again, this is just my subjective deal. It's not the one for me. All right, y'all. If you enjoyed this or any of the other videos on the channel, please make sure and subscribe. If you feel differently about this, or you have another DAC to suggest, please leave it in the comments. And otherwise, this is Signcraft signing out.